Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of Moneyfy Mantra, a webinar series where we talk to various industry experts about various aspects of markets and investments and personal finance. And I'm Gaurav, your host for today's session. And just to quickly introduce the Moneyfy app, Tata Capital Moneyfy is a complete investment app which enables all our customers to plan their investment, insurance, and financing needs in one single app. And we have also recently introduced products like corporate fixed deposits and NPS to offer complete financial solutions. So please download our app and start your investment journey with Moneyfy. Now, to take the discussion forward, in our last webinar, we talked about basics of investing and how you can profit from it in the long run. Today, also, we have an interesting topic to talk about, and which is diversification. And specifically, we'll also talk about Tata Multi-Asset Fund. And to talk on the same, we have with us Mr. Aurobinda Prasad. He is the head commodity strategy at Tata Asset Management, and he has over 16 years of experience in the areas of financial research, currency, and commodity analysis management. So Aurobinda, a warm welcome to you on Moneyfy Mantra, and it's our pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Gaurav, for inviting me to the show. I'd be happy to discuss my views and thoughts about diversification as a very important topic in the portfolio selection. So,
Sure.
we'll take this on.
So I would also urge everyone to put their questions in the chat window, and we'll try to take these towards the end of the session. So Aurobinda, to start the discussion, I think the first thing that we can talk about is what actually is diversification and why is it a first step for creating a portfolio?
Yeah, I think the question itself says diversification means do not just go in line with one direction and maintain a view on a particular asset class or particular scripts. And हमको मालूम नहीं होता है कि particular scripts कैसे चलेगा. जैसे मान लीजिए अगर someone is investing into gold or only into equity or only into fixed income, then you are completely relying on that particular asset class. So diversification, if I have to tell you a very basic principles of definition, is basically do not put all your eggs into one basket. जो definitely a typical proverb जो हर जगह कहा जाता है, तो definitely I cannot go away from it. तो मैं वही भी बोलूँगा. तो when we talk about diversification, then I'm sure it's all about putting all your assets into different baskets, or you put it the other way around, put all your assets in one basket, but the securities of each of the assets are different. So it's very simple definition to make here is that if you have a portfolio to make, do not just depend on one asset class. You put your investment into various asset class so that there is a diversification. And of course, there are signs behind it. How should you select a portfolio where you have mixture of asset class? Which one is directly correlated? Which one is indirectly correlated? If equity market goes up, what happens to commodities market? What happens to fixed income market? So one, as a fund manager, it's very important for him or her to prepare a portfolio for the investors. Plus, when an investor is investing into trying to make his or her own portfolio, then this should be kept in mind that it is all about diversification so that I do not end up investing into one asset class and completely think that how it is going to perform in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the benefit of viewers, what happens mostly is that people only invest into equity, thinking that that's the only area to invest, but there are multiple asset classes, as we will talk as we go along. So it's very important to diversify because हर एक asset class का risk return अलग होता है, and we will talk on it. Then the second point that we can talk about is how do we select the right assets to make an optimum portfolio, and obviously aim is to make returns with lower risk. So how do we select some of the assets? What is the thought behind it?
So there are two things that I want to tell you, Gaurav, here is one is selecting the right assets, which is very important. And once you have selected the assets within the asset class, which securities that you should invest into. Now, if we talk about equity markets, it's an ocean, it's a big market, right? I mean, you have large cap stocks, you have mid cap stocks, you have small cap stocks. So आज मैं इन्वेस्ट करने जाऊंगा तो मैं कौन सा स्टॉक्स कैटेगरी में इन्वेस्ट करूं. So once let's say I have decided कि मैं large cap stocks में invest करूँ, then I have n number of stocks within the large cap category. So which particular stock or securities that I have to select is also very important. So as a principle of portfolio management, जब हम एक asset class selection करते हैं, उसके बाद asset allocation पे जब आते हैं, तो then we decide कि उसमें कौन सा securities में कितना weightage डालना बहुत जरूरी होता है. So here if I have to tell you, Gaurav, one is that selection of asset class. So आज के डेट पे इंडियन इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए हमारे पास अगर asset class का काउंट करें तो we have a large market that is equity. Then we have another large market that is fixed income market, which is pretty old in India for many 2, 3, 4 decades now. And the new asset class which has come up today for the Indian investors, especially those who wants to invest through mutual funds, is commodities. I'm sure all of us would know when we talk about commodities, we typically think हम सोचते हैं कि gold है और ज्यादा से ज्यादा हम लोग न्यूज़पेपर में पढ़ते हैं कि oil price is going up, oil price is coming down, so then we talk about oil. बट आगे जाकर के ये सेशन में ये बताना चाहूंगा कि जब हम इक्विटी में हमारे पास 200, 300, 400 स्टॉक्स होते हैं सिलेक्शन करने के लिए, फिक्स्ड इनकम में हमारे पास बहुत सारे सिक्योरिटीज होते हैं, जैसे मान लीजिए गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज, कॉर्पोरेट सिक्योरिटीज, बॉन्ड्स, देन लिक्विड बॉन्ड्स, देन देयर आर मेनी थिंग्स दैट वी हैव. जब हम कमोडिटीज का बात करते हैं, एक्चुअली स्पीकिंग दिस इज नॉट अबाउट ओनली गोल्ड और क्रूड. Any commodity that we are consuming today or using today, maybe gold, silver, crude, copper, you talk about metals, you talk about energy products, you talk about agriculture commodities like edible oils, soya complex, then you have cereals, pulses, cotton. So now what happens is that when we talked about at the beginning, it's about diversification. Equity fund manager has a choice to decide which stocks within the asset class of large cap, mid cap, small caps to select. Now in commodities also you have a choice. Should I invest into gold or silver or copper or cotton or soybean? So that indicates that how do you select the asset class, and then further drawing down it to be कि आप कैसे security selection करते हो. फिर हम आगे जाकर के डिसाइड करते हैं कि आगे पोर्टफोलियो में अगर मेरे पास एक्स नंबर ऑफ सिक्योरिटीज हो जाता है, मैं भी आगे भी बताऊंगा कितना सिक्योरिटीज आपका होना चाहिए टिपिकली इन पोर्टफोलियो. एक बार आप सिक्योरिटी डिसीजन लेने के बाद देन यू डू हाउ डू यू मैनेज योर पोर्टफोलियो, व्हिच इज कॉल्ड बैलेंसिंग, रीबैलेंसिंग, वेट एलोकेशन. तो ये काफी फंडामेंटल्स जो है एक पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजर्स को ध्यान रखना पड़ता है. मैं ये जरूर कहना चाहूंगा कि एज ए इन्वेस्टर आल्सो वन शुड नो बिफोर इन्वेस्टिंग कि which सिक्योरिटीज में कितना इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए.
So broadly the first step is to identify asset classes for any investor, कहाँ पे पैसा डालना चाहिए, and then within that which securities to select. Obviously investors also need help of fund manager, and that is why the mutual funds are there. But if somebody knows himself also, that's the process which has to be followed, and then within those what securities to buy. Now as you mentioned, कितना security लेना चाहिए, ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा question है. lot of people ask, and lot of people also try to make very very large portfolios जहाँ पे हर एक सिक्योरिटी में छोटा छोटा एलोकेशन करते हैं. वो भी एक तरीका लोग अपनाते हैं, बट क्या एडवांटेजेस डिसएडवांटेजेस हैं ऑफ ओवर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन वर्सेस अ लिटिल बिट लेस डाइवर्सिफिकेशन इन द सेंस?
मेरे ख्याल से कितने सिक्योरिटीज एक पोर्टफोलियो में होना चाहिए, इट इज लिटिल सब्जेक्टिव एक्चुअली. एवरी इंडिविजुअल और एवरी फंड मैनेजर विल हैव देयर ओन स्टाइल ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग. But frankly speaking, when I was doing my MBA also, we had also studied, and काफी रिसर्चर्स इसके ऊपर काम किए हैं, और एक स्टैटिस्टिकल मॉडलिंग को ध्यान रखते हुए जो मैं बताना चाहूंगा, और मैं जो पढ़ा हूँ, या इनफैक्ट आई आल्सो ट्राई इम्प्लीमेंटिंग इन माय पोर्टफोलियो, कि minimum to minimum you need to have 20 underlying securities where you should invest, and upside it should not be going beyond 30-35. So आपके पास ऐसा पोर्टफोलियो है, मान लीजिए आपके पास एक पोर्टफोलियो जहाँ पे मल्टी एसेट का बात कर रहे थे कि इक्विटीज है, इन्वेस्ट फिक्स्ड इनकम है और कमोडिटीज है. अब इक्विटीज में इक्विटी फंड मैनेजर हैज अ चॉइस टू सेलेक्ट व्हिच ऑल स्टॉक्स टू टेक. तो मेरे हिसाब से विद इन इक्विटी यू शुड नॉट गो बियॉन्ड 20 to 30. विद इन कमोडिटी मार्केट साइज इज यूनिवर्स इज स्मॉल. So equity जैसा commodity में 100-200 commodities are not traded. It is only 20-30 commodities are traded. So within that, you should have 10 to 15 commodities to look at it. And in the fixed income side also, you should have something 5 to 10 securities to look at it. So broadly, as I said, subjective पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से मैं बताना चाहूंगा, लेकिन जो रिसर्चर्स कहते हैं ग्लोबली हिस्टोरिकली कि आपके पोर्टफोलियो में अगर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन को ऑप्टिमम करना चाहिए तो मेरे हिसाब से 20 to 30 स्टॉक्स इन द सेंस सिक्योरिटीज शुड बी देयर इन ए पोर्टफोलियो। जी गौरव।
So now coming to, since we have clarified how do we build a portfolio by selecting the assets, and then within those, what are the securities or what is the optimum level of securities? If you can throw some light at how each of these different asset classes perform, in different phases of market, because market का phase keeps changing. जो 2-3 साल पहले चल रहा था वो आज शायद नहीं चल रहा है, या 2-3 साल नेक्स्ट कुछ और चलेगा. So वो कैसे phases होते हैं linked to economy, how different asset classes perform, and specifically we can also talk on how commodities also react in different scenarios.
I think it's very important question हम सबके लिए है आज की डेट पे। लेट्स लुक एट पिछले 1-1.5 साल का सिनेरियो अगर हम देखें, मैं कुछ एग्जांपल साइड करना चाहूंगा क्योंकि वो एग्जांपल्स आपको अपने पोर्टफोलियो से इजीली कोरिलेट और लिंक कर
Right.
देंगे। जैसे मान लीजिए पैंडेमिक शुरू हुआ और 2020 अप्रैल मई में हमने इक्विटी मार्केट का बॉटम देखा। I'm sure everybody knows today in India that we hit the bottom of equity markets pretty low, in 2020 April. And now you look at 2021 September, we hit a new kind of low in 2020 April, and today we are hitting a record high. So broadly, अगर हम देखें पिछले 1.5 साल से equity market is rising into one unidirectional trend. Each and every individual whoever has invested at any point in time probably had made investments return. I don't know how many of most of the investors would have definitely made it. That is one typical equity market directions that has happened. कुछ लोग अगर जो कमोडिटीज में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो उनको कितना नॉलेज है या सबको मालूम है या नहीं, आई डोंट नो अबाउट कमोडिटीज परफॉर्मेंस कैसे हुआ है। जैसे मान लीजिए हमने अभी बताया कि equity has moved from 2020 April to 2021 September. Commodities का अगर मैं बात करूँ, let me not talk about gold and crude immediately. Let's talk something else, that is industrial metals. क्योंकि अगर आप देखोगे एल्यूमिनियम, कॉपर, लेड, जिंक, निकल, स्टील, आयरन ओर, सीमेंट, ये सारे कमोडिटीज के जो प्राइसेस हैं, on an average I would say more than 20 to 25% rise in prices has already happened. तो हमको ये लॉजिक समझना चाहिए कि इक्विटी मार्केट ऊपर गया, इंडस्ट्रियल मेटल प्राइसेस have gone up, और एक चीज बताना चाहूंगा, ऑयल प्राइसेस आल्सो सर्ज्ड मोर देन 40% इन लास्ट मंथ। तो ऐसा क्या रिलेशन है? नाउ इफ यू ब्रॉडली अंडरस्टैंड द मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स, आफ्टर वी हिट द economic slowdown bottom in 2000 April May, then entire world central banks they try to support the economy, जो हम उसको बोलते हैं stimulus packages, और we talk about lowering interest rate और trying to push the economy. जब आप इकोनॉमी को पुश करने की कोशिश करते हो तो यू आर पंपिंग इन एक्स्ट्रा मनी। तो एक्स्ट्रा मनी कहाँ जाएगा? इट हैज टू गो इनटू मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर। सर्विसेज सेक्टर तो काम नहीं कर रहा था क्योंकि नो वन इज एबल टू यूज सर्विस प्रॉपर्ली इन इंडिया इन द वर्ल्ड लास्ट 1.5 years. So manufacturing sector to ramp up, increase the productivity of manufacturing sector. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर बढ़ाने के लिए ये सारे रॉ मटेरियल्स यूज होंगे, चाहे एल्यूमिनियम हो गया, कॉपर, लेड, जिंक, निकल, स्टील। तो इकोनॉमी को थ्रस्ट किया जा रहा है बाय एडिंग अ लॉट ऑफ लिक्विडिटी। तो उस चक्कर में क्या होता है, लॉट ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स ओके देयर आर लॉट ऑफ लिक्विडिटी इज फ्लोइंग इनटू इट, सो इक्विटी मार्केट गोस हाई। ये एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि इकोनॉमी भी सुधर जाएगा और अच्छा कर जाएगा आगे जाके, और उसके अलावा कमोडिटी का रियल कंजम्पशन हो जाता है, तो मेटल्स और ऑयल प्राइसेस जो है राइज कर जाते हैं। अदर वे अराउंड अगर मैं अभी बात करूं गोल्ड सिल्वर का, now you have 100 rupees in your portfolio, now you are seeing the market is looking very strong, so I should park a larger portion of my investment into equity market. I don't see any measure of risk today, so let me take out my money from fixed income because that returns are very fixed, limited.
And low.
What I need to do is I park my major of my investment into equity side, reduce my exposure into fixed income, and gold and silver typically, which is typically said as safe haven asset class. जब दुनिया में कुछ चीज अच्छा नहीं चल रहा है तो गोल्ड सिल्वर चलते हैं, तब अभी हमको दिखाई दे रहा है कि everything is doing well. So why should I park my fund into gold and silver? If I talk about this year gold silver returns, they are negative 7 to 8%. So now imagine a portfolio you have out of 100, there's a 60-70% you are invested today into equity, 20% into debt, and let's say 10 to 15% in gold, silver, then you are actually still performing better because your 60-70% of equity performance is being driven in through the equity investments. Now, this is called risk on situation. Lot of liquidity flowing into it. Lot of investors are ready to take risk. So risk is strongly on. So money is flowing into it. So this is the risk on situation. So your equity is doing well. Fixed income and commodities are doing relatively okay. Gold, silver especially. Whereas as I explained to you, industrial metals are doing well. Now tomorrow scenario changes. How will the scenario changes? जैसे अभी आजकल हम न्यूज में पढ़ते हैं कि यूएस का सेंट्रल बैंक फेड इज टॉकिंग अबाउट टेपरिंग देयर लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूजन्स. सिंपल बात है, जितना पैसा इन्फ्यूज कर रहे हैं उसको कम करना है या आगे जाकर के इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ा देना है और इन्फ्लेशन को राइज करना है इकोनॉमी के बेस. तो ये मनी फ्लो जो है कम हो जाएगा. तो मनी फ्लो जब कम हो जाएगा, देन व्हाट वुड यू लाइक टू डू? यू विल स्टार्ट बुकिंग योर स्टॉक पोजीशंस. और पोजीशंस जो आपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इक्विटी के थ्रू से या डायरेक्ट इक्विटी स्टॉक एक्सपोजर से लिए हैं उसको आप कम करना कोशिश करें. तो एक बार वहां से जो प्रॉफिट अब तक कैप्चर हो जाता है, देन यू विल सी ओके द सिचुएशन इज टर्निंग नाउ फ्रॉम रिस्क ऑन टू रिस्क ऑफ. तो मेरा इन्वेस्टमेंट कहाँ जाएगा? तो देन आई विल स्टार्ट इंक्रीजिंग माय एक्सपोजर इनटू कमोडिटीज एंड फिक्स्ड इनकम. ये टिपिकल बेसिक पोर्टफोलियो साइंस, मैनेजमेंट साइंस है जो हम कोई भी ग्रेजुएट्स में पढ़े हैं. तो व्हेन रिस्क ऑन इज गोइंग ऑन, पुट लॉट ऑफ मनी इनटू इक्विटी, टेक रिस्क. बट आज के डेट में भी गौरव मैं बताना चाहूंगा, देयर आर रिस्क एपिटाइट इन्वेस्टर्स. लेट्स से if we are young enough, then we will try to put 70-80% exposure into equity. But if I am old enough and I am about to retire, then irrespective of risk on situation, शायद मैं वहां पे equity में इतना ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट नहीं करूंगा. इसके चलते हुए आज की डेट में अगर देखोगे, there are a lot of money also flowing into fixed income side also. आगे जाकर के गौरव हम बात करेंगे कमोडिटी के ऊपर और थोड़ा डिटेल में. लेकिन आपका क्वेश्चन का सवाल का आंसर आई थिंक आई कुड गिव यू एंड to our listeners who are listening to us.
So now, actually now we can talk about the category itself that we are now today talking on, which is the multi-asset category. So अगर multi-asset के बारे में आप if you can throw some light, and then we can come into the Tata multi-cap fund.
Multi-asset fund, okay. Sure. I mean, जब हम multi-asset बोलते हैं तो that name itself saying multi-asset, you have multiple assets. The first point is you are not depending only on one asset.
One single asset.
That is true. So now when we say multi-asset, I want to give a little background about SEBI regulations, which is very, very important. Correct. Multi-asset comes under a category within the mutual fund space under a hybrid category. So as per SEBI regulation, it is clearly stated that in your multi-assets category, which is coming under hybrid category, you need to have minimum 3 asset classes. So it is clearly defined minimum 3 asset classes. Then you have to decide whether your scheme has to be equity taxation scheme or debt taxation scheme. So अगर मान लीजिए आप नया इन्वेस्टर्स कोई हमको सुन रहे हैं, तो equity taxation scheme मतलब आपके पोर्टफोलियो में 65% मिनिमम इक्विटी एक्सपोजर होना पड़ेगा और बचा 35% आप उसको डेट में 30% डाल दो या 5% गोल्ड 25% डेट में डाल दो या 10% गोल्ड में डाल दो या वाइस वर्सा. और एक रूल मैं बताता हूँ कि मल्टी एसेट का जब हम बात करते हैं, जैसे मैंने बताया अगर इक्विटी टैक्सेशन है तो 65%. इसके अलावा सेकेंड रूल जो है मिनिमम 3 एसेट क्लास होना चाहिए और तीसरा रूल जो है मिनिमम एसेट क्लास में 10% का इन्वेस्टमेंट होना पड़ेगा. तो अगर मैं 100 को वापस ब्रेक करता हूँ एज इक्विटी टैक्सेशन, इट इज 65, 25 एंड 10 और अदर वे अराउंड. दूसरा मल्टी एसेट में एक डेट टैक्सेशन होता है जिसमें आपका 65% में कोई रूल नहीं होता है. यू कैन मेक इट लेट्स से 40-40-20 और 30-40-30 बेस्ड ऑन द फंड मैनेजर्स चॉइस ऑफ ऑल प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन. तो जब हम मल्टी एसेट का बात कर रहे हैं तो एज आई सेड द नेम इटसेल्फ इज डिफाइनिंग वेरी इजीली व्हाई अ मल्टी एसेट इज आल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड. जैसे मैंने अभी पहले भी एग्जांपल के तौर पे समझाया कि रिस्क ऑन रिस्क ऑफ सिचुएशन में you do not put all your eggs into one basket. So you try to diversify yourself by parking your funds into a fund where you have multiple of asset classes to look at it. And It helps you to diversify. फर्दर मैं आगे बताना चाहूंगा कि जैसे मान लीजिए मल्टी एसेट है, इसमें इक्विटी है, डेट है और कमोडिटीज है. नाउ इक्विटीज में आप सबको मालूम होगा कि इक्विटीज में यू हैव लार्ज कैप, मिड कैप, स्मॉल कैप स्टॉक. एंड लॉन्ग टर्म वैल्यू पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, ग्रोथ पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से अगर देखना चाहेंगे तो लार्ज कैप स्टॉक्स में इन्वेस्ट करना अच्छा लगता है. और क्विक मनी और क्विक रिएक्शंस अगर देखना है, तो क्विक इकोनॉमी की रिकवरी दिख रहा है, तो देन शॉर्ट टर्म मीडियम टर्म स्टॉक्स में आप इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो. You want to have some stability in your portfolio, then you park some money in fixed income products, maybe non-corporate risk or G6 or liquid funds. Now you have a choice in commodities. आप सबको मालूम होगा इंडिया में मल्टी एसेट एज अ कैटेगरी इज एग्जिस्टिंग फॉर मोर देन 13 to 14 years. तो थर्ड एसेट क्लास जो चाहिए इतने साल में आपके पास एक ही चॉइस है, दैट इज गोल्ड. गोल्ड इन द फॉर्म ऑफ गोल्ड ETF. Now 2019 में SEBI came up with another regulation which clearly stated that now mutual funds can participate into commodities derivatives products. जब हम बात कर रहे हैं commodities derivatives product, it's like equity derivatives product. So there in equity you have futures and options of derivative stocks. Here in commodities you have futures and options. So this market is regulated by SEBI. And today, commodities market being offered by NCX, NCDX, and today NSE and BSE are also offering commodity products. Now, what are the products we have within the commodities? We have gold, silver, metals, energy, agriculture, commodities. So there is a universe. So as an equity fund manager, I have a lot of choices to invest into various stocks. As a debt fund manager, I have also a lot of choices to invest into various debt products. Now in commodities, I only had one option so many years, past so many years was all about gold. Today I have option of investing. No, I think gold is not looking good, so let me put my money into copper or silver or cotton. So there also the diversification comes into play. तो हम पहले क्या बात किया, you have a portfolio where you make it 3 asset classes. Within asset classes also you make a selection of securities.
Yes.
And within the security, now in commodity also you have a lot of choices to make. So that's the predominantly answer to your question about multi-asset. Lastly, I would say uh, taxation is a point through which you decide your weight of the asset class. Second point that one should look at is the portfolio rebalance. So now if you talk about the equity taxation multi-asset scheme, it's about 65% always. But this 35% can be actually switched between fixed income to commodities and vice versa. Plus, agar मैं बताऊं, within equity also, today market is doing well, equity markets are rising up, so everyone is looking positive. But I'm sure in everyone's mind, there is a bit of confusion going on when I keep talking to our fund managers. Everything is looking good, but we don't know. There is something called market corrections. There is something called unsystemic risk will come in and market may correct down by few couple of percentage. तो उस टाइम पे आपको क्या करना चाहिए? आपका इक्विटी एक्सपोजर में ऐसा एक प्रोविजंस होना चाहिए जहां पे आप इक्विटी एक्सपोजर को भी हेज कर सकते हैं. So there are such product designs. जब हम हमारे प्रोडक्ट के बारे में बात करें, then I'll quickly talk about how it can be taken. जी गौरव.
I think now it's good that we have got a good background of what is multi-asset, how to diversify, advantages of diversification. I think now we can talk a bit about the Tata multi-asset fund and how it is a little different from other multi-asset funds and why investors can look for it.
Yeah, I think I'll be happy to talk about that. We started this product design in 2019 December onwards, and we started doing a lot of studies to understand how the multi-asset as a category in the industry has been performing, what has been the CAGR over the many years of more than a decade. And we tried doing some research analysis. Plus, as I said, now we have permission from SEBI that if you want to launch a multi-asset scheme, then you have another asset class that is commodities. And we took the initiative that let's have commodities. We have the in-house expertise of commodities. So I would now tell you about how Tata Multi-Asset Opportunity Fund, which is a multi-asset fund, is designed and how it is slightly different from others.
Sure.
So first of all, let me tell you, we launched this product in 2020 February 14th, and the NFO was over by first week of March. And today, if I would quietly tell you that from 2020 March 2021 September, so successfully 17 months past, जो हमारा फंड अभी तक एक्सपीरियंस हो चुका है. First of all, two three points to understand. Tata Multi-Asset Opportunity Fund is an equity taxation fund. So आज जो मैंने अभी पहले भी बताया कि इसमें 65% equity exposure है, और जो 35% जो हमारे पास है बाकी, उसमें हमने क्या किया, अप टू 25% एक्सपोजर हम कमोडिटीज में लिए हैं, और जो बाकी 10% एक्सपोजर हमने फिक्स्ड इनकम में लिए हैं, क्योंकि दैट इज द मिनिमम रिक्वायरमेंट. नाउ 3 एसेट क्लास को मैं अलग अलग एंगल से एक एक मिनट के लिए बताना चाहूंगा. जैसे मान लीजिए इक्विटी 65% एक्सपोजर जो है, 3 एसेट क्लासेस, तो टिपिकली यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट इट इज मैनेज्ड बाय 3 different experts. Yeah, 3 different experts. So in Tata Multi-Asset Opportunity Fund, the good part is that equity and debt is managed by our CIO. And within the 65% of the equity, we have predominantly 40 to 50% exposure into the large cap stocks. And remaining 50% we have multi-cap stocks where we have the mixture. One more thing probably investors would like to ask is that the 65% exposure that we have in our equity fund, उसमें भी हम इक्विटी हेज एंड आर्बिट्रेज करने का प्रोविजनिंग लेकर ऑप्शंस है लेकर रखें. मान लीजिए जैसे मैंने बताया अभी इक्विटीज आर रैलिंग ऑफ डूइंग वेल, सो एवरीथिंग इज लुकिंग गुड, बट टुमारो बेस्ड ऑन आवर इंटरनल मॉडल रेशियो एनालिसिस एंड ऑल, अगर हमको लगता है कि नाउ इट्स टाइम फॉर मार्केट टू करेक्ट, we might reduce our 65% equity pure long exposure to, let's say, 50-15 or 40-25, or based on the ratio, जो भी आपको इंडिकेशंस आएगा उस हिसाब से हम उसको हेज करेंगे. तो मेरा ये कहना है कि 65% of equity which is doing today well, tomorrow also will do well because you have the option of hedging. That is one. Now I want to quickly talk about on commodities because the larger portion is 25%. So in 25%, let me first make a comparison of our multi-asset of commodity exposure vis-a-vis others. Predominantly, if I would say, more or less the 7 or 8 multi-asset schemes that are in today in the industry, all of them have had all these years only gold exposure. And if I would say, the gold exposure has been between 10 to 12% or 10 to 15%. The differentiating factor here is, Gaurav, कि हमारे multi-asset में 25% का commodities है, बाकी में 10 से 15% का commodities. Now, another point to make a comparison is that 10 से 15% का जो commodity exposure है, that was only in the form of gold ETF.
Gold. And traditionally, that has been how the funds have been designed.
Yes.
Commodity.
अगर हमारे 20, sorry.
Commodity means only gold. Traditionally,
only gold.
Funds,
जी.
the way
जब हम हमारे multi-asset का commodity exposure का बात करते हैं, 25% को हमने gold plus other commodities में mix किया. So within one asset class of portfolio, first benefit is that portfolio diversification, because मेरा security selection more than one हो गया. Second, अगर मैं gold का performance पिछले 10 साल का बात करूं, the CAGR is around 7.5 to 8%. It's a decent return. Today's markets are decent return, gold return. But if I talk about a mixture of commodities and try building a CAGR, यहाँ पे ज्यादा टाइम नहीं होगा पूरा डिटेल में बोलने के लिए, लेकिन मिक्सचर ऑफ कमोडिटीज अगर सीएजीआर बनाते हैं तो मोर और लेस इट इज अराउंड 9.5-10% होता है. तो वहां पे कमोडिटी का एक्सपोजर 10 to 15%, यहाँ पे कमोडिटी का एक्सपोजर 25%. तो आपके पोर्टफोलियो में 65% remain based on the equity exposure. Now commodity exposure for us is 25%, which is yielding 9.5% return, vis-a-vis others which is yielding 7.5% return. Now remaining 10% of debt exposure remains same for both.
Correct.
So the advantage of here is, to say it Gaurav quickly, one is that within commodity also हम directional trade ज्यादा नहीं लेते. What we generally think is that we try building commodity arbitrage trade.
Correct.
So commodity arbitrage trade हमारा 25% का 70 to 80% का जो exposure है, out of 25%, we do through commodity arbitrage trade. तो 25% का अगर 70% भी मानता हूं तो वो हो जाता है 15% of total 100%.
Correct.
तो आपका 15% of total 100% is actually not exposed to any sort of beta risk.
Correct.
तो आपके पोर्टफोलियो में 65% equity है, जो subject to market return and long-term growth perspective you invest in there. Out of 35%, your 15% goes into commodity arbitrage trade, which carry no risk. Now 10% which is invested into debt, typically also considered carries no risk. तो 65% आपका equity में risk की product बन गया, यहाँ पे 25% आपका commodity और debt में नॉन रिस्की प्रोडक्ट, और जो 10% हमारे कमोडिटी के बचते हैं, हम उसमें डायरेक्शनल ट्रेड गोल्ड में भी लेते हैं, या गोल्ड के अलावा जो भी हमारा इन हाउस रिसर्च के हिसाब से जो अच्छा लगता है हम उसमें इन्वेस्ट करते हैं. सो दैट्स द प्रेडोमिनेंट product structure, Gaurav, for Tata multi-asset opportunity fund. And I'm happy to say that last 17 months of experience, the performance has been decent enough. We have been standing at quartile 1 performance among the industry peers. So that's about our product, and we are happy to continue to maintain the same philosophy in the future also.
Okay. एक बड़ा asset class है, if you look at in India, people invest into real estate. And now if you look at, we have options like InvITs, which are coming. And does the Tata multi-asset also have an option to invest into products like InvITs, REITs? In the
I may have forgotten to mention that to you, Gaurav, but REITs and InvITs are part of the portfolio. But we try making a comparisons from this security to that security. Today, we have had experience of investing into REITs or InvITs once or twice in last 17 months. But we understood that commodity arbitrage returns are far better, superior than the returns that you can imagine from REITs and InvITs. So we have reduced our exposure in these two side of
asset classes. But the fund retains the flexibility to invest.
We do have this.
Okay. So all in all, it's a package where people don't need to bother which asset class, how to invest, how to choose. The fund does it on its own, provided people are willing for a fund with a 65% equity taxation objective. And it helps to take very diversified exposure into different asset classes, especially commodities. I don't think there is any other fund which is doing commodities in this sense. Mostly the funds are investing into gold as a commodity within a multi-asset. So that's the unique point which is there in the fund. And I think this should really help a lot of our investors. Now we can also, basically the question that I had is what we have discussed now. There are 2-3 questions on the chat window, and we can try and take those questions before we end today's session. So the first question is on commodities, and I specifically on gold. And it says, sir, gold mutual fund का क्या view है? Gold trading at 1 month low. So specifically on gold, somebody wants to know the view.
Okay, I'm also concerned about that.
Sure.
Gold is trading at 1 month low. आज जो मैंने अभी पहले भी बताया कि gold is also down by करीबन 7.5% YTD 2021. So it is a concern. It is a concern. View point of view से अगर मैं बात करूं, क्या हो सकता है? What is the probability scenario? जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया कि काफी मनी और फ्लो ऑलरेडी मार्केट में इन्फ्यूज हो चुका है, एक सैचुरेशन लेवल पे आया है, इसीलिए सेंट्रल बैंक अभी सोच रहे हैं उसको विड्रॉ करने के लिए. तो ये विड्रॉ अभी होगा, सितंबर में होगा, अक्टूबर में होगा, नवंबर में होगा, दिसंबर होगा. दैट इज ऑल अबाउट द मीनिंग इज टेपरिंग. हाउ सून, हाउ लेट द टेपरिंग विल कम. This confusion is actually creating volatility in the market. But equity markets, investors are least bothered because money is still flown there. So it is not reacting. But with such kind of Fed's call or other central banks call, rather I would not say call, the statements that are coming on every monetary policy, that is shaking the market. And that is making gold prices lower, silver prices lower. And as I said, other metals and agriculture commodities or energy prices, they are not concerned at this moment. It's all about liquidity. So I'm sure if not today, I don't know when it is likely, but if I have a perspective, by end of 2021 or Jan, Feb of 2022, definitely tapering will take place.
Will take place, yeah.
And if that takes place, then the second question will come into mind, how much? So with the tapering likely to take place, will make a bottom for gold prices. Once tapering decision is taken 10%, 15%, 20%, that will drive back gold prices higher. So my suggestion would be, if I have to really talk about the price outlook here, we have already hit a low of 7-8% decline this year in 2021. We probably might not see a fall below 10% in gold price. So one now should start planning to invest in gold and stay invested. So if I broadly talk about for next 2 years, tapering will definitely happen. Economy will smoothen out. Lot of income level is going to increase, spending habits will increase, savings will increase, and people also continue to invest into gold. Then the average return of 7 to 8% that typically you see on a yearly basis, that we might like to see in 2022. So my call submission here, Gaurav, to the question which is asked is that 7% current decline might go to 9 to 10%. From there, you will see next year's CAGR at 27 to 8%. Now, typically, I'm talking about a rise back of 15% growth from the nearest low prices that we are witnessing.
But anyway, gold is a very long-term asset class. Anybody who invests in gold should also not view this as a 1 year or a 2 year journey, but it's a very long-term asset class, and it helps to rebalance the portfolio and helps to take care in terms of volatility.
It's also a safe haven class.
Yeah, it's a safe haven class. We have one last question which says, I am a lower middle class person, got good opportunity to earn monthly salary of 25,000. Now, how to create wealth within a time of 10-15 years with 1/5 of my salary? So he wants to invest a part of his salary and create wealth. So can you share some views? What is to be done?
Yeah, I think he has a clear thought in his mind, or maybe rather objective in his mind, that he wants to create wealth in next 2 decades or so. That's good to have such thoughts.
And the horizon is also very good, 10-15 years, which means
This is
long
pretty
run.
long term. This question is typically asked by many whenever we meet investors. So when we also designed this product, we looked at it in 5 to 8 years. Can this be invested into this fund for long-term horizon? One perspective, Gaurav, to suggest here, and obviously to the person who has asked the question, is आप ये मान के चलो next 3 years equity market don't perform. Let's take a scenario. And it gives you a return of 5-6% per year. Assuming. So after 65% is giving you 6% return. So typically 65%, 6% return is basically nothing but out of total portfolio is 3.5%.
3.5% roughly.
Now you are left with 35%. 35%, I am saying out of 35%, 10% going into debt, which will give you, let's say, 5% return. So which will be 0.5. So 3.5 plus 5, 0.5 is 4%. Now commodity, let's not be very, very aggressive about commodity. I would say let's keep it at 7.5% return. 7.5% return on 25% of the exposure will give you 1.5% return. All right, the worst case scenario I'm saying. So you have got 4 here and 1.5, 5.5% return. So if I would look at, you look at any hybrid category kind of fund or hybrid category kind of fund, the CAGR return for multi-asset itself is 7.5%. And the lower side band is between 5 to upper side band is 12%. I think irrespective of any market scenario, next 10 year happens. Because next 10 year, we will see economy doing well in India. Globally, we have a lot of greenfield projects taking place. और आगे जाकर के अच्छा ही होना चाहिए. So we should aim to look at an average CAGR of 8.5% on this fund, with a stability in your capital, stability which is maybe better than a typical fixed income kind of product. So one can think of investing into multi-asset fund for long term. हमने पिछले 40 मिनट में डिटेल में बात किया कि उसका प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन कैसे होता है, स्ट्रक्चर कैसे होता है. तो उनके क्वेश्चन को जवाब देते हुए मेरे ख्याल से some portion of his fund can be parked into multi-asset.
And some portion can also go for pure equity for a longer term.
Yeah. Since he's asking a question seems to be youngsters because he started his career.
Correct.
So he can have some sort of equity exposure at a larger exposure.
So Aurobinda, I think we are done with the questions, and we are close to our time as well. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot for taking time out and explaining the multi-asset in a very, very lucid, very simple manner for the benefit of all our investors. And I think everybody would have gained a lot with this discussion today. So thanks everyone for joining us, and please also explore our Moneyfy app. You can download Moneyfy app from Play Store and App Store both, and also do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates on investment and more such sessions. So thanks Arvindo once again for joining us today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gaurav, and thank you, our
Thank you.
listeners.
Thank you.